games that he's now playing. So definitely putting himself in a strong spot here overall.
All right, well, game number 4 is going to be shaxy's mid-range shaman up against Gogongsing's discard zoo, and I feel like this zoo is thus far not quite performed as evenly as Gogongsing would have liked.
Yeah, definitely not, and it is a deck that is volatile for sure. The discard mechanics do increase the the maximum power level of the deck, if you like, but it does open it up to a little bit of inconsistency. And added to the deck there is a Forbidden Ritual as well, which is a card that a lot of people have cut out of the deck because it doesn't really play nicely with Soulfires and Doomguards, because it takes up all of your mana. You have to spend an entire turn getting that out of your hand first, and then you use your Soulfires and Doomguards to not discard such a powerful card. So interesting that Gogongsing is choosing to go still with that card here, and we'll see if it's going to come out, because against Shaman in particular, with the introduction of a card that you may have heard of called Maelstrom Portal, it's not a particularly attractive looking card.
I mean, what's the answer to a board full of 1/1s? Jeez.
I know. I mean, it's almost as if Shaman just didn't have any kind of high-quality AoE already, and they just needed that extra help, you know?
Yeah, I hear you talking junk at Lightning Storm, but Lightning Storm has been out there in the streets getting it done since, like, day 1 of closed beta for me. The first question I ever asked Ben Brode before I ever started working at Blizzard on Twitter was very frustratedly, why does it do 2 to 3 damage?
Yeah, it's one of the cards that does make Shaman a slightly frustrating class to play at times, and just the inherent nature of the hero power as well can be quite tilting at times, but Maelstrom Portal, much more consistent. There is not a great deal of variance in 1-drops. You have a couple of strong outcomes like Flame Imp and Injured Valdir, but outside of that, everything's just kind of around the same thing. So Maelstrom Portal just kind of does what it does, which is ruin your dreams in combinations with spell damage most of the time. And yeah, it's one of the huge cards that's had such an impact on this matchup in particular. Another reason why Zoo has got so much weaker is that Shaman, one of the decks that it was originally built to beat, is now a bad matchup for it because of all the high-quality AoE.
Right, I was going to say, back in the day of ahqShaxy's, I mean, Zoo is almost, I would say, almost a hard counter to it, because once it got on the board, there were no Lightning Storms, there was no other, AoE removal, so what would end up happening was the Zoo would just take the board, and the Shaman would never be allowed to be on the board again.
Exactly.
But nowadays, as we've been talking about the premium removal suite that Shaman has access to, Zoo just in a really rough way most of the time.
Yep, and now the Maelstrom Portal has been drawn. It was the one thing really missing from shaxy's hand. He had a lot of high-power minions. He had some late-game plays. He had the thing from below, which can give him a ton of tempo on one given turn, based on when he chooses to use it, but he didn't have that AoE option he was going to need. Maelstrom Portal being picked up now changes that, and he's looking like he's in a pretty comfortable position.
Yeah, and he understands that just keeping Zoo off the board will mean that over time he'll naturally win out in this matchup. His power level towards the mid and the late game is just far more powerful than Zoo's, even with the Doomguard. Yeah,
and Gogongsing has a pretty rough decision here. He senses that he's being forced off the board here, so he wants to play Doomguard to try and grab it back immediately. But those are 2 of the very best cards in his deck that are sat in his hand, so he's going to feel absolutely miserable about having to give them up. But I just don't see him getting a grip on this board ever again if he does not play Doomguard here.
Yeah, it'd be different if he could play both of them, but the inability to, meaning, has to choose as well which one he puts down now. And I would imagine Gang Boss is probably more advantageous to him. Yeah. Means, you just have to go with the Doomguard here. Yeah,
life tap, play an Amgam Rager doesn't really feel like the winning line of play in that situation. So slam your Doomguard, move on with your life, pour one out on the curb for your Fallen Brothers and the Imgang Boss and the Darkshire Councilman, and just try and make a push.
Look, they get it.
Yeah.
They've been there before too. We've all had those turns, and I'm sure afterwards Gogongsing will go back and look at what was in the hand of shaxy, but see what we get off the Barnes here.
Meh.
Some underwhelming Barnes here, and Barnes is one of those neutral legendaries that right there with Blood Mage Thalnos is just all over the tournament scene right now, in the wake of Yogg-Saron disappearing a little bit.
Yeah, Yogg-Saron moving away and Tuskar Totemic moving away, so players just felt like they didn't have that outcome of just pulling something out of nowhere anymore, so suddenly had to start slamming some Barnes in every deck.
I mean, it just makes life more interesting when you play Barnes.
Yeah, let's go with that line. That
is this another one of Soddle's least favorite cards?
It is, yeah.
Ooh, can't wait to read the Icy Veins article about that one.
Coming soon to a
Soddle
website
hates
near you.
fun, the article. We are seeing, though, that Gogongsing has managed to, prior to this Lightning Bolt, actually put up a pretty reasonable board.
Yep.
The Lightning Bolt is probably worst case scenario though in terms of what he could have or what could have happened to him there.
Sure, but the tempo Thunderbluff Valiant onto the board now, 3-6, nightmarish, absolutely impossible for Zoo to deal with from off the board. It would literally need to be like a crazy Knife Juggler plus a Soulfire or double Soulfire that didn't discard themselves. No chance to be able to deal with that 3-6 in this situation. So now suddenly every single totem that's going to get summoned is going to have huge value on the board. And if he can hit spell damage here, the game ends on the spot. Just like that, Robert.
Well, Shaxy hit the spell, damage totem, and now Gogongsing is going to look to hit the concede, probably.
That is an accurate assessment of the state of the game. No way for Zoo to climb back onto a board that they are this far behind on, and the life total is just going to melt away.
Twisting Nether off the... Nope.
Nah.
Nope. Doesn't happen.
You tried to call it. You looked